Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of HorrorHouse. And this week, it is a very special episode because as of the day of release of this episode, as of today, if you're listening to it on the day of release, of course, I don't know when you listen to it. You might not be listening to it on the day of release, but as of the day of release of episode 24, this episode of HorrorHouse, it is to the day the 1 year anniversary of when episode 1 was first put out. May 21st, 2016. 1 year ago, episode 1 of this ridiculous podcast was released to the world. And yes, here we are, 1 year on, which is madness that I'm still doing this, to be honest. As much as I do love doing it, and I don't know. Saying I never thought it was going to last this long would be wrong, but I always intended for this to last a long time. I'm so glad that we are at our first birthday, and for this first birthday I wanted to do something special this week. So whether you saw on Twitter or not, or on Facebook as well, this episode we will be doing a bit of a Q&A, and a personal Q&A about me, about horrors. There's plenty of horror questions involved, as you would expect, really. But I wanted to do something a bit special, a bit different for this 1 year anniversary. And yes, that is what we're doing. But before we do get into all that, I wanted to give a huge thank you to anyone that has ever listened to the show, and especially those that have been good enough to come on as guests. Every single guest I've loved having on. It has been really, the first guest, well, technically that's not the first guest. Kimber, I know you're listening. You were technically the first guest in episode 4, where we talked. What did we talk? I think horrors by non-horror directors was episode 4. And ever since then, for the majority of the episodes at least, there has been at least one guest involved, or one other person besides me. Not the case today, of course, this just being me in this one. But yes, every single person that I've ever had as a guest, I'm so grateful for them agreeing to be on it. It's been so much fun. It has built a lot of friendships, and that's true, it really has. Doing this has built a lot of friendships for me that I don't think will go away anytime soon, which is just wonderful. But yes, before we do get into any questions and answering, I wanted to give a truly heartfelt thank you to anyone and everyone that has listened to any episode of this show for any length of time, because it makes me feel good that some one person, I don't care, that some one person would be listening and would be, at least somewhat entertained, or maybe you just find me awkward and weird, but that's good enough as well. But yes, the fact that people may actually enjoy listening to this it warms my heart like a nice jumper on Christmas morning. that didn't mean anything. That didn't make any sense. Moving on. Yes, we do have a few questions that some wonderful, wonderful people were good enough to send in for this episode. I don't know how long this episode's going to go, but as you can already tell after 5 minutes, it's very, very rambly and all over the place. That's what it's like when there's not a guest to keep me, on track. If you've noticed, I can go off on some weird stories and tangents sometimes, and the guest usually pulls me back on track. I'm really I'm the amateur in all this. I still am after a year. I don't know why. I am being joined by a nice cup of tea as well. Anyway, that is why I took a bit of a pause there to take a sip. Yeah, I think this is even more casual than usual on HorrorHouse. But that's what we like, that's what we like. So yes, after all the heartfelt thank yous, let's move in to the questions. And there is quite a few. I'm gonna go, I don't know. I'm interested. Yeah, some of these questions are pretty interesting. That I'm probably going to have to think about. But let's not prattle on too much longer. The first question is, will there ever be a horror movie that wins Best Picture? Now, this depends on whether you class Silence of the Lambs as a horror movie. And of course, the wonderful Stacey Howard in the last episode completely classes Silence of the Lambs as a horror movie. It is her favourite, or so she said, at least on that episode. So, will there ever be a horror that wins Best Picture? If you don't class Silence of the Lambs, see, this all depends on what, aside from just Silence of the Lambs, this all depends on sort of what type of film you class as a horror. Silence of the Lambs is a sort of psycho thriller, but it has its horror in there. But will there ever be a horror that wins Best Picture? I can't. Very, very, very sadly, I can't see a straight up horror ever winning Best Picture, unless there's some serious changes that go on with what the Academy views as, good quality film. And there are certainly some years in cinema history where my favourite film has been a horror from that particular year. There's no doubt about that. And of course, with horror sort of taking quite a big leap in terms of quality in the past couple of years, at least from what it has been over the past sort of 10, something like Get Out could. I think something like Get Out as a film, not just as a horror, just as a piece of cinema, is Oscar worthy. But it's not going to win the Best Picture. It's not going to, even though it, potentially could. Because it is phenomenal, and it's got the relevance as well that Best Picture winners tend to have. They tend to say something about culture and society, and Get Out certainly does that. But sadly, no, I don't think there will ever be a horror that wins Best Picture. And And, you know, I'm not going to say I'm fine with that. I'm not upset by that. It's obviously my favourite genre. But I tend to enjoy Best Picture winners anyway. I tend to. Some I don't particularly care for. But, no, will a horror ever win? Sadly, I don't think so. Unless there's some sort of drastic change. Question number 2. Are there any horror movies you saw that you didn't care for, but realised they were well made? People who know me will probably already be shouting this as they're listening to this. They'll be shouting The Exorcist, because notoriously I'm not the biggest Exorcist fan. And fellow horror fans are often shocked when I tell them this, because, you know, everybody says it's the scariest movie ever made. It's the best horror film of all time. No, it's not. It's far from that. But like the question says, I realise it's well made. I fully realise it's well made. I fully realise why some people do view it as truly one of the best horrors ever made. Sadly, some of it does sort of suffer from those. There's a multiple number of versions of The Exorcist, and some scenes are sort of added in and out, so people don't know sort of which version of The Exorcist they're watching. Is it the one with the spider walk? Is it one without the spider walk? You know, and the spider walk's fun. That's obviously the one you want to see, because the spider walk's just great. And yeah, The Exorcist is the big one for me that I fully realise is a good, well-made movie, but is no, I can't get around why so many people view it as one of the best, and I know people say this about some of the stuff I like as well, which makes perfect sense. You know, that's perfectly fine. Differing opinions are what we need for sanity. But yeah, The Exorcist is the big one. I'd also yeah, I'd put The Babadook into this category as well. The Babadook is a very, very well made film. I will never watch The Babadook again. Not because it was so well made that it disturbed me and all that. I will never watch The Babadook again because of that horrendously annoying child. Now, I don't know whether that's the child himself, the performance the actor is giving, or just the character. I don't know what it is. But the child in The Babadook is unwatchable. He's so aggravating, and I get that's probably the point. But I can't watch it, and it really, really took me out of watching that film. And again, I fully realise The Babadook is a very, very well made film, a great horror film. This is what I say. I say The Babadook is a great horror film ruined by a horrifically annoying child. So you've got that as well. The Exorcist and The Babadook. There'll be some others, but I don't want to spend ridiculous amounts of time on each question, because then we'd be here for hours, and I want to keep it to the usual-ish time. Next question is, outside of making content, what was the best thing to happen to you since you started this channel? Yeah, so really the first thing that was on, this channel. I mean, there's a few. There's a couple of private videos that I did before, not too long before. but those won't be seen by people. Um, I've got people intrigued now. I don't like that. But yeah, the first thing that was put on this channel was 1 year ago. Was episode 1 of HorrorHouse. What's the best thing to happen to you since you started the channel? To be honest, like I sort of said before, getting to talk to so many other passionate people and having them on as guests, whether it's on this, whether it was on Picture Show when that was a thing, whether it's been on, the couple of enlightenment hours that there have been, and especially on Twitter, meeting so many wonderful people that I now consider very close friends has been the best thing that has happened to me since starting the channel. And to be honest, it was before then as well that this sort of started. But yeah, start doing this and being able to talk to them as guests on this show. Really getting to know, you get to know a person. That's what's good. I love talking to fellow passionate people about things, and yeah, that is easily the best thing that's happened to me since I started this channel, and I wouldn't swap that for the world, because it's wonderful. Okay, moving on from slightly soppy territory now. Favorite slasher death scene? Oh, there's a lot. There are so many. Just wonderful ones. I mean, if you're rattling off some obvious ones, I've always loved Kevin Bacon arrow through the neck from Friday the 13th. Obviously, you go Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street. Bob in Halloween, pinned up against the door. Is a great one. I'm gonna try and think of some sort of lesser ones. Favorite slasher death scene. Oh well, if you whether people class English words. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say class, aren't I? Whether people class with an S, not a H. Whether people class Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a slasher or not. And so it is probably then the is it Sally? Sally? No, it's not Sally. Sally's the main girl. Oh, who gets put on the girl that gets put on the meat hook? It's dragged in. You know the scene. Goes in looking for Kirk. I think the guy's name is, who's already been grabbed, and she goes into the house, and Leatherface comes out from behind that sliding door, sees her, sprints out of the house. Leatherface sprints after her, picks her up, grabs her, drags her back in, into the back of the house, and then puts her on that meat hook by the neck. That has always been a favourite. Yeah, to be honest, I'm probably going to go with that one. I know it's maybe slightly obvious ones, but yeah, I've always loved that. I don't know, in a weird sadistic way, I've always loved that meat hook death from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's wonderful. Oh, look at this next question. Well, I know who's wrote this question. I've not said who sent these questions in. Thank you, of course, to everyone that did send the questions in. I just haven't wrote the people down who who actually asked them, but I remember full well who asked this question, and he'll be laughing to himself now. It's favourite Edgar Wright movie. Again, notoriously, I don't love Edgar Wright. And that is the perfect way to describe it. I do not dislike the man as a director. I do not dislike the man as a person. I like his films. He makes good films. People call him a genius. I'm not quite sure why. I just don't love the guy. My favourite Edgar Wright movie is Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is a great film. I enjoy all of Edgar Wright's films that I've seen. I enjoyed them all. The man's not the greatest filmmaker on the earth. He's not in contention of best director of all time. He's not in contention of best director of the past 15 years. I don't know what some people are talking about, but my favourite Edgar Wright movie is Shaun of the Dead, for obvious reasons. Zombies, bit of zombies, basically, because it's a horror comedy. That's why. Although I have, like I said, I do like his other films that I have seen. Yeah, Shaun of the Dead. Moving on from Mr. Wright. Thank you for that one. Truly, really appreciate it. Moving on is another slightly strange, out of nowhere question. Have you ever been to a yard sale? Does a car boot sale count? Now, I know that most people that listen to this podcast are from the US. I'm not sure if they have car boot sales in the US. It's exactly what it sounds like. You put a load of stuff, and you go to a field. They have them all the time. They have them like every week around here. People's unwanted things. It is essentially a yard sale. So I'm gonna say yes to the question. But let's tell a bit of a story. Let's give some context. Like every week, usually on a Sunday, obviously, people from around the local area will gather in a field with their cars. They will drive onto this field, always on a field, or like a car park, one of those gravelly car parks that nobody likes. Not like a nice car park. Usually on a field though, or at least the one I've ever been to, or the one I at least remember going to, was on a field. Yeah, so you get all these people that gather on a field and park up their cars, and then open the boot of their cars to display the goods they are selling. It is a yard sale, but people just gather their cars on a field, and you just walk around like trying to find some deals and haggling with everybody. Haggling's a wonderful thing. I adore haggling. It's the best thing to do. It's so entertaining. It's even more entertaining to watch people haggle. I would sit for hours in a market, in a car boot sale. If a car boot sale provided benches or like some sort of entertainment balcony set up for all the people that just want to watch everyone haggle, then I would go every week. Yeah, you always get people selling dodgy things for far too much money, and then on the other hand, you get people selling quite decent quality stuff that they just don't want anymore for like £1 So it's great. Yes, I have been to a car boot sale / yard sale. I'm classing that because it's the same thing. We don't really have yard sales in Britain. We have car boot sales, and they're much more entertaining. This is a ridiculous question. If you were a soup, what kind of soup would you be? Now, do I take this really seriously or not? Because it depends. I think it depends on the day. Well, I don't know. I'm quite, I don't know, I'm not a spicy soup. That isn't me. I'm not a spicy guy. I'm a hearty guy. What's a hearty type of soup? I mean, I'd be boring and say like beef and vegetable, because that's all you want in a soup, and I'm all you want in a person, obviously. Nothing fancy. You don't have to be one of those weird flavours of soup, and you don't want to be too boring, like a tomato soup or a mushroom soup. What is a mushroom soup? Nobody likes mushroom soup. And tomato soup's far too dull and boring and bland. And I'm a bit more than that. I've got some substance. There's some substance there. There's some meat there. And there's some health. There's some healthy stuff there as well. This has got really weird. But yeah, I'd say a solid, nice beef and vegetable. Not a chicken and vegetable. Not a chicken and vegetable, because chicken's different type of meat. It's not as rich and fulfilling as a beef. What am I saying? Yeah, beef and vegetable. Moving on swiftly. Before this gets really, really weird. Back onto a HorrorHouse question now. What is the favourite episode I have done so far? And or favourite guest I've had on? What's the favourite epi? Wow. You know, that is a tough one. That is a really tough one. Oh, there have been so many. See, I've got to pick 23 episodes and however many guests between this. This is not easy. Highlights. Let's go highlights, because I can't pick a favourite. I can't do it. The Scooby-Doo 2-parter was glorious. The episode we just did with Stacey Howard was wonderful. The Vincent Price episode. I believe that was episode 10 that me and Kimber Barrett did. That was wonderful. What else is there? Oh, there are so many. I tell you who I really did like having on though was, I can't remember what number episode this was though, but back in October, when I had the pleasure of going to Grimfest, Manchester's horror film festival, and I had the director of the best film I saw there, and a film I've been telling everybody to go and see since I saw it, and still do. I believe it is now currently showing at Cannes as well, which is just fantastic. I hope that only helps the film get out to more people sooner. And yeah, I had the pleasure of having the director of Tonight She Comes, that's the film's name, on here, Matt Stewart's, who for just a quick interview, but that was really lovely. I really liked that. But no, picking a favourite guest. I mean, like I say, I've loved speaking to everyone that I've had on. I know it's a cop out answer, and it's not the dramatic answer people want. But I can't really choose. Although having Matt Stewart's on was great. Just taking another sip of tea there. Yeah, favourite episode though. It's probably between the Scooby-Doo episodes, the recent one with Stacy, and the Price episode though. Unless I'm forgetting a really obvious one, which I probably am. Knowing me, I probably am forgetting a really obvious one. I mean, there's not been an episode that I haven't, that I've thought was bad, which, I've not thought it was bad. Whether everybody else did or not, I don't know. But I have thoroughly enjoyed doing every single episode and everyone that I've spoke to. So it's a very, very difficult question to ask that. To answer. Sorry, I can't answer better. Oh, here's a good question. Oh, I like this question. Let me take another drink while I ponder this one. Oh, if I was on the Schmodown, what would my name and entrance music be? Now, for those who are not aware, the Schmodown, or the Movie Trivia Schmodown, is a show on Collider Video on YouTube, created and ran by Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis, the Schmoes, who, it's basically movie trivia with WWE storylines. And it's wonderful. It is the best show. It is the best show. It's on twice a week. They have a team match and a singles match every week. I would implore anyone that has not watched the Schmodown to go over to Collider Video now and watch the Schmodown. But if I was on the Schmodown, what would my name and entrance music be? My entrance music... See, this all depends on what personality I was going for. Now, I think I would play face. I'd have to be the good guy. I'd be shouty. I'd be very, very shouty, because although I'm often, relatively quietly spoken on episodes like this, and shows, I have a secret shout within me that my good friends in this country will let you know about. They know perfectly well. I can shout very, very well. So I don't know. My name and my entrance music. I mean, because entrance music, that's your whole thing. Your name can change. I think you can change your nickname. But I think when people change their entrance music, they're cheating themselves. So, what is my entrance music? It'd have to be something soulful. It'd have to be something soulful, because that's just who I am. What is good entrance music, though? Papa Was a Rolling Stone by the Temptations is good entrance music. That's good soulful entrance music. It's got a nice beat to it. You could walk out in that, walk out nice and casually. Obviously, I would be dressed in a suit if I was competing on the Schmodown. I might say that. I might either say that or... Hmm. See, I'm thinking something by Marvin Gaye, but then I don't know what. So I'd probably say Papa Was a Rolling Stone for now. You know, that might change when I, of course, eventually do turn up on the Schmodown, which is never going to happen. But what would my name be? Like my nickname? Would I have one of those nicknames that comes at the beginning of your name? Could I picture Christian Harloff saying the something Morgan Robinson or Morgan the something Robinson? See, that all depends, really, doesn't it? I don't know. What would my name be? I would like to save myself some thinking time. If anybody has any name suggestions, please tell them to me. Use the hashtag HorrorHousePod or comment on this video if you're on YouTube. Tell me what you think my Schmodown name should be, and any entrance music that you think would be better for me than Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Although I will admit, my own father is significantly better than the gentleman in the title character of Papa Was a Rolling Stone. That being said, it's got an excellent groove to it, which is what you want. No, I don't know what my name would be, though. I'm going to leave that to other people to come up with for me, because I can't think. And I'm sorry if that disappoints anyone, but that's the truth. Next question. Who would be my dream guest for HorrorHouse? Now, you might expect me to say someone like a John Carpenter. Obviously, it'd have to be someone horror-related. That goes without saying. Only makes sense. But John Carpenter, you know, would be a dream come true. Truly. Someone like Robert Englund would be a dream come true. Bruce Campbell would be a dream come true. But do you know who I would honestly want to have on more than perhaps anyone else? Is Victoria Price, the daughter of Vincent Price, who tours around speaking about Vincent, her father, and I believe has written books and everything. I would adore the opportunity to talk to her for an hour about her father. I think that would be incredible, and I think that would be the best possible dream guest for me to have on this show. If you're not familiar with Victoria Price and what she does, she's got a whole Facebook page. You just search the name, you'll find it. But yeah, that would just be incredible. I could imagine tearing up during that episode if God, if that ever actually does happen. My God, that would be something really, really special. Truly special. And I know maybe people weren't necessarily thinking about that, but yeah, that would honestly be the one. What is my favourite horror subgenre? It's gothic. It's gothic. I think anything gothic. Because it just creates the most atmosphere. It is so beautiful. In terms of film, a gothic horror film, I think, offers more to the world, to the art form of film, than any other horror subgenre. Now, you can say slasher all you want. Slasher is by far the most fun horror subgenre, by far. But Gothic's really where, I think, in terms of horror film, Gothic horror is really where it's at. That is my favourite subgenre of horror. Here's a weird question, moving on from horror. Dark chocolate or milk chocolate? I really don't like dark chocolate. I can't eat dark chocolate. It's weird. It's bitter. It's awful. Milk chocolate any day. And to be fair though, white chocolate is the work of Satan. And not in a good way. White chocolate is even worse than dark chocolate. It's horror. No, I can't even think about it without physically retching. Awful, awful things. I don't eat chocolate a great deal. I'm more of an ice cream guy. You know, obviously. Not obviously at all. Why would anybody actually know that? But I know I don't eat chocolate all that much. But when I do, it has to be just standard milk chocolate. What is my dream vacation? Oh, now I've just got the Holiday Road song from National Lampoon's Vacation in my head. Oh, good. That's not gonna go out all day. What would my dream vacation be? Wow. I mean, it's a good question. It's such a good question. I think just touring a country on my own, to be honest with you. Like, to be honest, I've wanted to go to Japan as well for the longest time. Japan's certainly up there. But going around the US on my own, because I've been to the US quite a few times. I'm fortunate enough to have been to the US quite a few times, and been to quite a few various cities of various sort of nature. But doing that on my own, I think would give, or maybe with one other person, would give so much more. I'd get so much more out of that. So that either a solo or duo tour of the US or Japan, in my current mindset. I think. Do you have a passion project you'd love to do? Wow. This is completely true, I have been toying with the idea of writing short horror stories for a long time now. Obviously, I love the genre. That goes without saying. I've done this for a year. But yeah, I would think publishing a selection of short horror stories that sort of that link together but not obviously. You know what I mean? Maybe so this is where it gets all jumbled, because I want to do this but I don't know exactly how. But that is, yeah, that's a passion project. I would also love to, honestly, create my own online network of shows like this, and audio shows, video shows, and just build a big network of really quality content. As weird as that might maybe to sound, that would give me so much satisfaction to actually create something like that, aside from writing short horror stories. So yeah, I think those two things. those two things I think are pretty passion project things. And you know, doing that would also give me the opportunity to be able to, you know, fulfill some of my other sort of dreams, like covering the major film festivals. You know, everyone being at, or everyone I follow being at Cannes currently is just making me want to do that more. And I would just, having that for a life, it just seems incredible to me. So yeah, those are some passions and dreams and aspirations. Oh, here's a question. When I visit, what are we doing first, and vice versa? Now, I think the same answer goes, I think this was Delisha, actually, wrote this one. So thanks, Delisha. What are we doing first, and vice versa? Okay, so, very first thing, I'm taking this quite literally, very first thing I'm likely to do when I meet people who I have met online and not yet met in person, I'm likely, the first thing, because I'm ridiculous like this, and I know my dad loves doing this as well, we always joke about this, and it's wonderful every single time. I think my mum and my brother hate it, to be honest, but we always go, if there is like a major landmark nearby, for example, when I was in New York City with my family, it would be hilarious because there are so many well-known landmarks in New York City. Me and my dad would find it hilarious to make the joke of whenever we were very close to one, just either asking my mum or my brother, or pretending to ask random people, and just saying, "Excuse me, could you tell me where the Empire State Building is?" And we would literally, you know, be stood next to the Empire State Building. And that's hilarious to me. So, putting it back into the context of what I would do first, if I meet anyone, and vice versa, I would either ask if there is a well-known landmark nearby. I would ask that question, or I am likely to walk up to you and say, "Excuse me, I'm waiting for a friend. Have you seen them anywhere? They look like this," and then just show you a picture of yourself. Because for some stupid reason, that's hilarious to me, and I'm smiling thinking about it now. It has always been hilarious to me. It's explaining it doesn't make any sense, but believe me, it's funny. So yeah, that is probably the very, very first thing I would do, and then, you know, we'd do all the fun stuff that happens when people meet each other for the first time in the, in real life that they've known online for however long. So yeah, I would make a stupid joke. What's the next question? The worst horror film I've ever seen. Moving back onto horror. The worst horror film I've ever seen. This can be taken in different ways, because is the worst the most forgettable, or is the worst truly the worst? Because I happen to I enjoy watching bad films, so I can't call them the worst, because I enjoy them. The major argument I always use for this, or the major example, is Joel Schumacher's Batman films, right? I love watching Batman and Robin. I can't stand watching Batman Forever. Batman and Robin is a worse film than Batman Forever. but I enjoy watching it more because of that. Batman Forever is just poor, whereas Batman and Robin is so poor, it's wonderful. So, moving that onto horror, is the worst. I've likely forgot about the worst horror I've ever seen because it was bad, but it wasn't that bad that I remembered it. If that makes any sense. I know it probably doesn't, which is sad because there are some wonderful, there are some wonderful so bad the good horrors. The B-movie horror is a genre that I love because those films are not good, but they are wonderful to watch. So I've likely forgotten about the worst horror film I've ever watched. And while that doesn't answer the question at all, and I'm very sorry for again not really answering a question, I hope that at least gives you a bit of an insight as to what I think when it comes to that sort of thing. By my answer being, I've likely forgotten about the worst horror film I've ever seen. I don't know. How often do you trim the beard? Okay. For those who have never seen my face, which is unlikely, I have a beard. It's not a massive beard. It's not a short beard. How often do I trim the beard? To be completely honest, there's no schedule. There really should be a schedule, but there isn't any. I trim the beard whenever I feel like it. Whenever I feel like it's getting to the point that it needs tidying up or cutting down because it is getting slightly too long, in the middle of May, I will trim it. But even when I do trim it, I never trim it down too far. Like, I always make sure there's still a good bit of substance there, because that's, you need a bit of bounce to the beard. The beard should always have a bit of bounce to it, I think. That's my answer for that one. How do you take your tea and coffee? Black. Both. Black tea, black coffee. And no sugar, no cream, no sweetener, no milk, no additional things. Tea and water, coffee and water is how I take my hot drinks. In the most, some would say the most boring form, but I would say the tastiest form. So, yeah. Favourite cookie? Presumably this means biscuit, because this is Britain. My favourite biscuit is... there are so many good quality biscuits. And there are so many different types of biscuits. Because the only thing we call cookies are chocolate chip cookies. That's the only thing that people in Britain call cookies. Everything else is just a biscuit. I love custard creams, which is a really weird name for those who don't know what a custard cream is. But I literally have a tin of them right over there, and they get devoured. Or a chocolate digestive. Or just a normal digestive, to be honest. Normal digestive biscuit. Very, I don't know what it is about normal digestive biscuits. They're not like the tastiest thing, but they're addictive. This conversation could go on for ages. I could sit here pondering the quality of biscuits for hours, but I'll say custard creams, even though the name, to those who don't know what a custard cream is, sounds horrendous. Yeah, that. Oh, we're up to the last question now. And that's nice, look at the time. The last question that I've got written down here. I'm going to have to say it in the voice, aren't I now? No, do you know what? I'm going to go against convention. The last question is, what's your favourite scary movie? An appropriate final question, I think, to end off, because I always ask anyone, I always ask new guests that come on. The first thing I ask them on any episode is, what is your favourite horror movie, if that is even possible for you to answer? And I don't think there has been anyone yet that has not answered with one solid answer. The reason I came up with that question was because I do not have one solid answer. There are so many that I love for various different reasons that it's not possible for me to have one favourite scary movie. It's like having one singular favourite film. It's not actually possible to have one singular favourite film. But some of my favourite horrors are, Texas Chainsaw is in there, The Omen's in there, The Wicker Man is in there, 1931's Dracula is in there, Evil Dead, the entire, Evil Dead, the entire series really, but, primarily Evil Dead 1 and 2 are in there. Anything with Price, The Haunted Palace is probably my favourite Vincent Price film. That's in there. So what is that, like a top 5, top 6? Yeah. I'll leave that as a unranked top 5/6. How many did I say? Can't even remember now. Anyway, that. Yes. Anyway, that was the last question for this 1 year anniversary Q&A. What a year it has been. I don't pretend to think that this is the most well listened to podcast or the most popular podcast or anything like that, but the fact that 5 people, the fact that anyone listens means the world to me. And as I do say, I will continue to do this show for one person, and I will continue to do this show for 10,000 people. That is just my mindset when it comes to this. So yeah, again, I want to thank everyone so much that has ever listened to any minute of any episode of HorrorHouse, or anything else for that matter, but primarily HorrorHouse, because of this special day, and especially those who have been good enough to have been guests on the show. And of course, I want to, in the next year, I want to get some more wonderful guests on. And yeah, that's all I can really say. Just thank you. Just a simple thank you. Definitely look out for episode 25 of this show, which will be, of course, in a couple of weeks' time, a very, 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 very wonderful guest. I am not going to out and out say anything, but just look out for it. It was such a pleasure to have this person on talking about, just talking. I'm literally not going to say anything. I love it. but you will not want to miss episode 25. And of course, let's do plugs, shall we? If you are on iTunes listening to this, please subscribe to this feed and leave a rate and review as well. Let's get some of those going if you're feeling generous. If you are on YouTube, please sub to this channel, of course, for all of all of these, all of Horror House, all of Enlightenment Hour, and the comic book flick throughs, all the content on the YouTubes. You can also check me out on Twitter, of course, at the Purple Dawn. Follow the podcast at HorrorHousePod, #HorrorHousePod, if you want to carry on any of these nonsense conversations and tangents I went on in this Q&A special. What else can you do? I think that's about it. Guys, for 1 year later, thank you so much for listening. Here's to another year, and a year after that, and however many years after that. Until next time, goodbye.